After President Buhari's meeting in London, he pledged 50% increase in the budget for the education sector in the next 2 years. We assess that agenda tonight. And 7 members of the PDP National Executive today resigned, alleging marginalization by the Uche Secondus National Working Committee. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. Before we begin tonight's conversation, let me give you an understanding of where we're driving at and what we're going to be doing on the program tonight. We begin the conversation on the agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari on the issue of education. He has expressed his commitment to increasing the budget for the education sector by 50% in the next 2 years. The president made the pledge on Wednesday at a global education summit in London in the United Kingdom. The commitment was contained in a document titled Heads of State Call to Action on Education Financing ahead of the Global Education Summit. Well, the presidency is quoted as saying that they will increase the budget of education by 50%. The agenda is to be spread over the next 50 years. We will be speaking with the Minister for State for Education tonight. But let us tell you that the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party is also one of the agenda for us tonight on the program. And also we'll be hearing from an aggrieved member of the APC in Kano State. All of this for you tonight. Stay with us, everyone. So let's begin the conversation tonight by looking at the agenda of the Buhari-led government on the issue of education, especially coming out of that summit in London. One of those who were with the president at that summit is the Minister of State for Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajoba. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, and it's good to see you again. Let's begin the conversation by getting to know what exactly are the takeaways from that conference. What we know as of now is that there will be an increase in the budget by 50% for the next 2 years. Give us the details of the outcome of that meeting.
Thank you, Shehu, and thank you, fellow Nigerians. Like you've rightly pointed out, the president of our country, President Muhammadu Buhari, in London, pledged the country's commitment towards increasing funding for education as a whole of government approach. The GPE, which is a global partnership for education, concentrates its effort at making sure that education standards are improved around all the countries of the world. There are essentially about 22 donor countries and about 92 partner countries. Nigeria has been part of this for the past few years. In the last administration, well, before we came into, the APC came to power, there was a commitment to spend some money to improve education in Nigeria. While this was going on, there was a noticeable decline in some of the index that we use in the metrics of assessing our educational goals. Number of out-of-school children, number of people who are, gainfully educated, number of what the outcomes from our educational standards are, and then the kind of graduates and people we produce, how are they able to participate in the economy. So when we run all those indices, we see that there is some level of decline. And the president, as soon as he came into power in 2015, then began a systematic approach towards increasing both funding and outcomes. When this developed into some concept, the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, alongside the technocrats in the ministry, worked out a system of increasing how UBEC and the states can participate. Whilst this was going on, we got the report about the number of out-of-school children there were, and then try to fund them through our own means here, which is basically budget. The UBEC, which is the commission that oversees universal basic education in Nigeria, in conjunction with the states, began a steady increase in the amount of money that was being given to the states, and tried to aid all the states to raise their counterpart to be able to access all of this money. In spite of all of this effort, there are still many gaps. So, with the introduction of BESDA, with the introduction of STEM education, with the TVET style education, and all the programs that the Ministry of Education has had towards trying to improve education in Nigeria, we still had these issues. So luckily for us, there is this campaign to increase funding, which is currently championed by the Prime Minister of Britain, Mr. Boris Johnson, and the President of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta. And they all got together and said, look, it is important to ask donor countries and donor agents and donor private persons around the world, let us raise a $5 billion provision that we can use in grants to help educationally disadvantaged countries, more or less, what we call developing countries. Nigeria happens to be a partner country, which is a country that benefits. And therefore, it was important that President, alongside the other presidents of the key states or key nations that are going to be receiving this, would come to London to this summit. So at the London summit, the president made this commitment because it is part of the understanding that he's approached all of these heads of governments with. And he has made this known to GPE, that Nigeria will, in the next 2 years, increase its funding to education by as much as 50%. And in fact, proceed to do 100% in another 5 years. The president is speaking from a position of clear understanding, because if you listen to him in London, when he made this statement, he also was a panelist himself when he explained that the quest for education is so severe here because everybody realizes that if you do not get people educated, the people themselves miss a lot. If we are going to be able to have some sort of manpower to run this country, we must invest in the number of people who are going to be educated. And the only way we can do that is to have a whole of government approach, which is what the president alluded to in saying we're going to increase funding. In increasing funding, he is not going to dip his hands in his own pocket and do this. He understands that this is a commitment he's making on behalf of Nigeria. It is up to you and I, the National Assembly, and all our responsible citizenry to try to make sure that this happens. There are many ways in which this will happen. Number one is that, yes, allocations that will come from the National Assembly when we go into appropriation would definitely need to increase. Number two, at the UBEC level, 2% of the consolidated revenue fund revenue of the federal government is dedicated to UBEC already. Now, it is important we expand that scope either by increasing it to a 3% provision, which is what we have proposed to the National Assembly, or we increase in actual terms the amount that is inside the federal revenue, consolidated revenue fund. Any way you look at it, there will still be an increase in education funding. The same applies to how we fund and help tertiary education. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TET Fund, is 2% on profits of companies operating in Nigeria. There are ways to increase that as well. Either we increase that to 3%, or we increase the bandwidth of the number of companies or those who are eligible or the kind of profits that can be described and pulled into it. So any way you look at it, the country realizes that it needs to increase funding to the education sector. When we talk about the education sector, many Nigerians also look at what we're doing from the Ministry of Education as if that is the only place where money is spent in education. Nigeria has nearly 600 other institutions that are not controlled directly from the Ministry of Education, because Nigeria is a vast country. And I often explain to people that you need to understand the education to understand anything else going on in Nigeria, because we produce the manpower for your military, we produce the manpower for your aerospace dynamics, medical doctors, any sphere of life, including you, Shehu, and all the broadcasters here. You need to first be educated, in order to impact the quality of work you're going to be doing. So for us, education is at the heart of everything, is at the base of everything. And to appreciate where Nigeria needs to go is to appreciate how you need to educate its people. With 135,000 primary schools around Nigeria, half of which belong to government, at the state level, some of them belong to institutions, some of them to churches and mosques and faith-based organizations. All of these are in the mix. So for you to graduate people from a basic education level into where they can now begin to use the basic education they've acquired, either to further their studies or to run the country from any way you look at it. If somebody is the most menial worker, needs a form of education. There is no level of work that does not need some sort of education.
Let me quickly come in, Honorable Minister. Yeah, so let's break it down. Let's take a look at some of these issues. You've given us a premise on the meeting and the outcome. Let's look at how this will happen and how you hope to achieve this. First and foremost, those 50% that you are hoping to increase in the next 2 years. What exactly do you mean by that? Does it mean we're in 2021? Does it mean in 2022 there will be an additional 50% added to the education budget, or the 50% is across 2 years? First and foremost, let's clarify that.
Okay. That is something that you need to work. We're working out with the National Assembly. And I explained to you what this means. Right now, all the total funding that is available stands somewhere about 7% of our budget. If the budget scope is widened, the actual value of money that goes to education even of that 7% will, by that same margin of expansion, be expanded. That's one. But if, on the other hand, there isn't enough room to do that, you need to then crop from different sectors to increase the actual allocation to education, such that it becomes another percentage of that particular budget. However, if you look at actual figures for what we have this year, we're still in the neighborhood of about 7% of the budget. So if we get the budget to education up to 14%, we would have actually done 100%. But if we do up to 3.5% of what we did this year and add that to the 7% we have this year, we have actually done 50%. Because in actual numbers, this is what it means. So we're trying to double the amount of money we are spending in education from where we are presently to a minimum of 50% in the next 2 years. And
okay, so all right,
what the budget itself is. Yeah.
Okay, so I get it. So in the next 2 years, 50% of in each year. But where will this money be coming from? There is already a ceiling on the budget. There is a certain amount of the budget. That means the budget will be increased, or you're going to take from some sector to fund the education sector.
Thank you very much. You must have heard the meeting yesterday with ASU, where the Minister of Labour had already said where the federal government is moving 30 billion for revitalization. This was not originally in an annual budget. Many of the sums that are going to be gathered around this will be to get monies from not just the Consolidated Revenue Fund, but I'll ask the National Assembly to appropriate further sums to the areas where we need them. There are also other external ones, like how we rechannel the monies that are collated for the work in education. For instance, our teachers, the Teacher Registration Council, for instance, we're spending more money to keep teachers longer. We've already said that we want to hold on to teachers who are in classrooms for a bit longer than others who would have retired. That will require additional funding. So while all of these are being computed, we know that if we aggregate the sums we are spending in different areas, I can tell you, for instance, many people don't realize that if you're in the School of Fisheries, is a schooling program. The fact that it is in the Ministry of Agric does not make it less of a school than others. Monotechnics, School of Forestry, the schools of engineering in different capacities, all of them are forms of education. What government is doing is now going to try to do a whole of government approach towards education, and not just say anything that is not held by the Ministry of Education is not education. Education spans way beyond all of this. We know the total number of schools we have as Air Force command schools, command secondary schools, NMS all over the country, Nigerian military schools all over the country. We know the NDA, the new university we have at BU. All of these now are educational institutions. We're no longer looking at government as if there's no part of government fighting each other. Right now, we're going to be looking at a whole of government approach. If you then take that down to where the states are doing, our job is also to engage all the states and make sure that we streamline what it is that they're doing so that each part of each state is talking to each other, seeing what is available. Today, WAEC just submitted a report to me because ahead of the exams we are going to take. We have nearly 1.56 million people registered to take WAEC this year. Now, in this number, we have nearly 20,000 secondary schools around Nigeria. The spending that Nigeria is going to spend on that, which previously was not captured, is going to be dealt as educational spending now because it is actually educational spending. And all of these are monies that actually reflect themselves in the economy. Nigerians look at only what a budget says without necessarily looking at what the total government spending is. And this is where we have looked at and said, yes, we're going to step up all of that. Now, if additional revenues are gotten by government, or if there is further revenues in government, we will appropriate them using the same metrics. Because now the president, which is part of the reason why the president has gone ahead to commit to ensuring that in case there are additional revenues, we will use the same metrics to put them right. It is not just enough to spend money. Actually, money is not really as important as what you want to do with it. The problem we've had over the years has not been that monies were not voted. What has happened in the Buhari administration, and since we all joined together, is about the commitment to make that money work. It is not important how many vehicles you buy, as long as I get students trained. The focus has shifted from just buildings and putting money in the hands of everybody or consultants. Focus has now shifted to actually getting things done. We want to see how many students are in your classroom. We want to see how many classrooms are functional. We want to see how many of anything that we said we want done. So we've changed everything to a performance-based discussion. I mean, the Governors Forum themselves, they've done very well with their engagement with us, and you can see they are really focusing even their own states. So everybody is on board now, and we think Nigeria can only go this far with it. Let's get the country started and get into run.
Yeah, quickly, Honorable Minister, we need to tackle a lot of issues, cover a lot of grounds based on what is on the ground. So it's established now that from about 6-point-something% or 7% of the budget of education in 2021, we should be expecting, say, about 10 points or almost 11%, because if the 50% added to it, it takes us to over 10%. But give us a sense of what this means, because it is not only that all of the education budget goes into improving the education, it also goes into recurrent and overhead also. And these are some of the issues. But in terms of policy, was there any major policy decision that was made in London aside the funding?
Yeah, thank you, Shehu. Actually, both are complementary, because you make policies and then you have the funds to pursue them. For policies follow, programs follow policies, and then projects follow programs. When you've had the policy of the federal government right now, it centers around getting people into some education that makes them a bit more entrepreneurial and are, you know, are able to fit into the demands of modern society. Yes, you will notice that there is almost a dissonance between what it is we train people for and what the job market requires. Since we came in, we've also working with the Nigerian Universities Commission and industry, created the Triple Helix Roundtable, where industry is now saying what it is that they need people trained in, and that's what you're seeing with the way the curriculum has just been reestablished. Now, when we do all of that, it requires us to retrain some teachers or to some lecturers. So you heard recently that TED Fund is marking more money for taking lecturers back to school. Those who need to be proficient in different other fields that is being done. We have now also created this network amongst us about TVET, such that every child now or somebody who is in a school, apart from just entrepreneurship education, will also be required to have a vocational skill. Now, once that program is running, it requires us to then provide equipment for children to be able to use in their schools for the kind of programs they are able to run. If you go to some of the schools, some of our money has been put to good use in Lagos, for instance. If you see the new science blocks that are being built in the technical schools around Agidingbi, I was at the new one that they just, UBEC has just funded. Those are the kind of workshops, government trade centers that are going to be complementing this effort. Because as we make those programs to shift into the new policy alignment that we have, which is to make everybody able to perform some sort of role, not just speak English or just read and write. Now we're giving people the opportunity to become coders, computer programmers, those who can actually engineer their way around life, which is what the industry requires at the moment. We are also complementing that with projects to make sure that those who can teach it, the equipment for it, and the procurements or the workshops that are necessary for all of that is also put in place. So that policy was adumbrated further on in London. The president did say, apart from just the money, that our focus would be channeled a little bit more on TVET and STEM education for the purposes of producing the kind of manpower Nigeria requires.
All right.
It's also also commit to fighting the melee of corruption that more or less delimitates people from performing properly. He also spoke about security, because those are the areas where we meet some gaps, or where there are some challenges with how we deliver. And you know that even before we went to London, myself and the Minister of Finance, along with the service chiefs and many of the other participants, also held, including those of you journalists, Chief Nduka, and everybody, they were all in the Safe School Initiative discussion, which we had at in Abuja a few weeks back. This is what the president did propose as part of the general policy guideline around how we can deliver education for the use of Nigerians for the production of our manpower that is required.
All right, Minister, let's look at some very disturbing situation and how the government can fix those areas. One of the major issues here is the government, by law, is to provide free, compulsory, and universal basic education for every child of primary and junior secondary school age. That is what the law says in Nigeria. But if you look at the figures of out-of-school children, of the almost 200 million Nigerians, ages 15 and below, about 45% of the Nigerian population. That is huge. But of that figure, from about 3-4 years ago, 10.5 million children are out of school. It stands at over 13.2 million Nigerian children of school age out of school. How are you going to ensure that these figures go down and ensure that the education in Nigeria is not only free, the universal and the basic education is not only free, but of quality?
Thank you. Apart from the way you've made the mathematics seem like a bit fuzzy, there are no absolute numbers with children out of school. What has happened is that in the computation of these numbers, some of the directives were not worked out properly. But then there are lots of children out of school, and you may have noticed that in the last 2 years at least, I've probably been to almost all the states in Nigeria and launching BESDA, the Better Education Service Delivery Program, which the federal government had funded to the states. Now, that is a direct attack at the out-of-school children numbers, because we know that even one child being out of school is not a good thing. So we want all of them. And the law is clear. Like you pointed out, UBEC was designed for this. We were members of the National Assembly in 2000 and up to 2003 before when that law was made and was signed in 2004 by President Obasanjo. That law is intended to make education compulsory at the basic education level for every child in Nigeria. We've not been very successful with that because there have been gaps in how the states run it. Because the federal government does not own any private primary school in Nigeria. The federal government does not own them. Well, federal government simply funds it. Basic education is actually in the hands of all the subnationals. It has not been as stellar. The present crop of governors we have actually improved on it. But many governors before them really did this country a lot of disservice. Some of them didn't hire teachers. Some of them simply took the monies for many years and took it with them and their families. Some of them just built carcasses around the country that is unimaginable why human beings would do that. The actual investment in the child has been left unattended to. This government, in this administration, has now sought to address this. And we are constantly engaged with the subnationals, the state governors, and we are requiring them on a performance basis to then be able to access the monies we have at UBEC. Some of the monies are still untaken because some of them are not yet to meet their counterpart funding, and we're still insisting that we will work with them and give them as much latitude as possible to be able to use these monies. But like you pointed out, any place where we find children out of school, the Ministry of Education has a lot of programs from nomadic school education to the adult literacy campaigns and commission. We have different commissions that deal with all of this. And I'm sure people around the country know and see these agencies. However, it is still not enough, because it's not enough to just have agencies and names. It is important that we get to work at them, you know. So it might seem like I overlabor the point of continuously engaging them or fighting as if we're running a different program. But we keep urging them to do more, because the work is not done until the last child is in school. So we have then crafted issues around advocacy. We visit traditional rulers, emirs, people who are the custodians of culture in that area, to release some of the cultural practices that disable children from going to school. So we also have then, as a socially responsible government, this government is the first government that started cash transfers to poor people to allow them release their children to go to school, because the excuse has always been these poor children go to hawking, those of them go to farms, most of them, they need the children to make a living. So we have responded. This government is the first government of its kind. When people talk about the ideology of the APC and what is different, this is a social democratic way of thinking where you enable your citizens to then become partakers and participants in government. And this is the first government that has ever done cash transfers as a way of inducing people to come to school.
Minister, we're due for a break.
School feeding.
Yeah.
This is
sorry to bump into your line of thought. We're due for a break. But when we come back, we want to know how much Nigeria got from that deal in London, how much we get into the education system in Nigeria. Plus, we get your closing thought on some of the very touchy area like ASU strike. Over and over again, we see lecturers out of our university going on strike. When will this end? We get some answers when we return from this break, everyone. Join us again.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is commending the completion of the demutualization of the stock exchange, urging the management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited to explore areas of growing the stock market by venturing into emerging frontiers. He stated this when he met with the management of the company, led by its Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Temi Popola, who made a presentation on the post-demutualization activities of the Nigerian Exchange Group to the Vice President. The federal government has begun the training of 37,000 young people, whom it says will be its foot soldiers for combating fake news and disinformation across the country. The training, which is part of the 5-year work plan of the National Orientation Agency, NOA, targets 1,000 young persons per state and the Federal Capital Territory.
To fight against corruption, to fight insecurity, we must, of necessity, include the fight against fake news, hate speech, and the misinformation.
The River State Governor Nyesom Wike has criticized the APC-led federal government over the handling of the economy and says he doubts the intention of the government of the day to wanting to conduct a credible election in 2023.
Mr. President cannot tell us that sincerely he wants to hand over to Nigeria and want to conduct a free, fair, credible election.
The governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, believes that the ongoing nationwide strike by resident doctors is coming at a very wrong time. He adds that even if the doctors have grievances against government, the industrial action could have adverse health effects as the country grapples with the latest wave of the coronavirus pandemic.
We will appreciate it very, very much if you guys can call out all your members from across the state and just look at it as an Edo thing. It's about us.
Taraba State Governor Darius Ishaku is urging residents to know that his administration's desire to create chiefdoms is taken in good faith to bring government closer to the people and not to divide the state into ethnic blocs. The governor, who was speaking at a sensitization workshop for traditional rulers, also warned monarchs to desist from harboring criminals in their domains, as doing so will render the fight against insecurity a futility.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on the program. Some breaking news right here on Channels Television. We can confirm to you that 3 more abducted students of the Bethel Baptist Secondary School in Kaduna State have been found. The 3 students, who are all males, were said to have been found by troops at the Kankumi Forest General Area in Chikun local government, where they were reportedly abandoned by the abductors. The breaking news right here. 3 more abducted students of Bethel Baptist Secondary School in Kaduna State have been found. Stay with us right here on Channels Television. We give you up-to-date information on that. Let's wrap up our conversation now with the Honorable Minister for Education. But let me get your view on that breaking news. Honorable Minister, the attacks on education institutions where children are being kidnapped and abducted from their schools. Now we have information that 3 more of those students and several others are still in captivity, but 3 more of them have been found from the Bethel Baptist Secondary School. Let me get your reaction on these news.
Truly, Shehu, I'm elated. This is the kind of news I want to be hearing every day, that they should please return our children to us. I am so happy for these parents and for these children, but I appeal, like I've been appealing. I was in Katsina just to meet with the air service men who are flying that area to please encourage our military. They have done they are doing a tremendous job of following up these kidnappers and these bandits. But to appeal to the bandits and whoever talks to them, please leave our schools alone. We already have many issues, from Kagara to Tingari to Jengebe, all the places where they've gone to just disrupt schooling activities for our children. This is unprecedented, and the atmosphere of insecurity that they occasion and cause parents, those it's altering how we plan to. It's a big setback for us in the schooling agenda. From the days of Chibok, because all of this started way in the Chibok era, because once you have people who are outside government holding arms, they can do anything at any time. From there, they went to Buniyaji. From Buniyaji, we're now parading all of these places now. So it's been 7, 8, 9 years now of constantly dealing with this matter. I think they are disrupting education, especially in the north, where we already have huge challenges that are both culturally and geospatially, induced. And we think if there's any way we can appeal to, we can all face one another off and leave education. So I'm really very glad to even just have these 3 back. And I think we should have all of them back, every one of them, please, wherever they can, any kind of help we can get, please. And parents, please, I appeal to parents to please bear with us. The federal government is doing as much as we can possibly do. I know it is disheartening, and I can't even begin to feel how you feel. And I'm appealing as the minister of, one of the ministers you have put in government, that we take responsibility and we are really working to, do the most we can on this matter. Thank you very much.
I have 60 seconds with you, Honorable Minister, and I have 2 questions. I'd like you to help me so that we can wrap up quickly. How much did the government get, the deal the government got from London in this education summit? From the monies, the billions that were on the table, how much will come to Nigeria?
Well, so quickly, $125 million will be coming to Nigeria. We thank the President Muhammadu Buhari, for showing up, because his presence made all the difference. Because we couldn't. This is the largest Nigeria has ever gotten from this summit, and this is a fantastic one for us. Luckily for us, we also have the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, who is now going to be on the board of GPE, who is going to then stay there to make sure that we allocate these monies to the states where we have the our biggest problems. Most of you may not even think of a state like Oyo State as a place where we will probably have a problem, but we do. And so those states, we are studying all of the graphics on the floor, and we're going to try to allocate these monies to the places where we think we can best utilize them, or fill in the deepest gaps and try to get people running. That's number one. Yeah.
So
that's how
quickly,
much we're getting, $125 million.
Okay, so quickly, the last part is, and just in about 20 seconds, Minister, ASU strike yet again. I mean, since when I was in school, about 2 decades, this has been happening over and over again. We hear ASU strike. When will these permanently end?
Yeah, thank you, Shane. I'm as much frustrated as anybody else, and you've heard me over time keep explaining to ASU and our members. But you see, you have to also appreciate ASU's position. ASU is not running they're in an ecosystem, they're in an educational ecosystem. One thing talks to the other. So we are constantly engaging them, and the Ministry of Labor has had very, very fruitful discussions with them. I don't think they are going on strike anytime soon. I've always said I don't think there's anything that they want that can be discussed without going on strike. They are very responsible men and women. They love this country the same way all of us love it. The last time they were on strike for almost how many weeks? Well, I benefited because all of my children were home, because since my children are all in public schools there, that was my chance to stay with them for almost how many months. But that's not fun, even as parents. And but you want your children to get on. And I don't think they should do that again. I think anything that they want, and which we all want, because they're not wanting anything for themselves, really. It's to get the system running. And all of us are on board to do that. And I don't think strikes should be on the cards anymore at all. Yeah.
Honorable Minister for Civil Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, fellow Nigerians.
Yes. So let's swiftly move into 2 other businesses that we have tonight before we go. One is of the PDP and the other for the APC. Let's take on the PDP quickly. It appears the main opposition party, the PDP, is having a tough time keeping all its executives members under its umbrella. 7 national officers of the party have now resigned their positions. The officers, in different letters addressed to the National Secretary of the party today and made available to China's television, alleging being sidelined and unfairly treated by the National Working Committee of the PDP led by the chairman, Uche Sekundu. Some of the letters you will see in a while on your screen. The Agri Party National Executive said that they have been marginalized and totally neglected. The executive members include the party National Deputy Publicity Secretary, Diron Odeyemi, Deputy National Organizing Secretary, Hassan Yakubu, and the Deputy National Woman Leader, Adizat Umoru, amongst others. Of course, we're already hearing from the NWC, the National Organizing Secretary of the APC, Austin Akomboni, has been reportedly quoted to have said that those who resigned were deputy members of the party and not members of the National Working Committee. However, refused to comment on the reasons for their resignation. We understand that there are meetings to that effect. One of those who is not happy with what is happening in the PDP is the PDP National Youth Leader, Ude Okoye, who joins us virtually from Abuja. What exactly is happening with your party, Honorable Okoye? 7 executive members of the party resigning today. Things are getting bad, isn't it?
Yeah, Shegun, things are really getting very bad. I tell you that our national chairman has not been getting it right. In fact, I don't see our national chairman as a good manager. Because if you are managing well, certainly 7 deputies will not quit your party within one day. 7 deputies quitting your party within one day. That's a clear proof to all Nigerians that he's not a good manager. I don't think that our national chairman can lead us to victory in 2023.
You are the national youth leader of the PDP, and you're referring to the national chairman of your party. What did he do to you? It does look like you are also aggrieved. You have not resigned your position. What in particular is your own grievance?
Well, my grievance is that our chairman is not managing the party the way we can win election in 2023. In fact, he is not in any way engaging Nigerians to begin to be full-time lovers of our party, PDP. He's just busy looking for personal gains and leaving the party to keep going down. If you watch Mr. Shegun, you can see that so many governors of our party have left. So many National Assembly members have left. Have you ever come across any news where our national chairman is making an attempt to bring them back or to make sure that they don't leave? It should be very clear to you that this chairman has no good project for our party. It's not that I am aggrieved, to the party. I'm aggrieved to Secondus because he's not doing what he's supposed to do. We elected him to lead us from opposition to the ruling party. But on daily basis, he's taking us into more crisis and he doesn't care about it. I want to tell you something you don't know about Shegun. Those deputies that resigned, our national chairman never even wanted to address them. He was not interested in what was their reason for resigning. That shows you that he's not a good manager. And you can't see him moving from state to state, having programs from zone to zone, talking to Nigerians, telling them how PDP has been reformed. Has he even been interested in reforming the party at all? No is the answer. Are you getting what I'm saying? So I tell you that for these 7 persons that have resigned and so many who are still threatening that if he continues, if the leaders of the party does not ask him to leave, that we are also going to resign. So many of us have our reason, and our reasons are anchored on mismanagement of the party.
All right.
Honorable
Ude Okoye,
he can manage the party.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your thought tonight. We did hope that Mr. Kolologbodi or any member of the NWC will promise to be on the program tonight. They will make good their promise on coming and telling their own side of this story. Honorable Okoye, thank you so much for your thought. He's the national youth leader of the PDP. It's not the PDP alone that is having problems. APC is also having its own fair share of problems. And in Kano now is where we will head and still talking about the aftermath of the APC World Congresses, which held on Saturday. And some members of the APC in Kano are not happy. Let's get to hear from Shehu Dalatu. He is the chairman of the Buhari Support Organization of the APC in Kano State. He joins us from our Kano studio. Alhaji Dalatu, thank you so much for joining us tonight. One will think that everything went well in Kano. What is your grievance about the exercise of Saturday?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, but what happened was that the governor and the interim executive of the APC stayed inside the government house, select about 100 people, and called them the caucuses, and decided that they are not going to do any election. It is all being sorted out. And we, the hundreds of thousands of APC supporters, we were not even allowed to go into the government house because you have to be screened, and they have to be sure it's like an exclusive governor APC club. So it's only them, their own people, who were allowed to go in and make a decision. But clearly it was stated that elections should hold. And secondly, there was some confusion from the Supreme Court decision, and we had a legal opinion from no other person than the Minister of Labor, Minister of State, who said these elections or congresses should not hold, let them suspend it. So we are a bit confused, but the official communication we got that the Congress should hold. So we told all our people, and all our people were ready, and we went ahead to do the congresses.
Well, some of the issues that is affecting the APC, which perhaps some of the members are aggrieved about, is whether or not they agreed or they came to an agreement on the issue of consensus. For Kano, I saw some footage of the Congress being held in some different parts of Kano, but if you are saying, Mr. Alhaji Dalatu, that the election only held in the government house, I want to know what happened in some other parts of the local government areas, because the question is, the World Congresses are to hold at every word in Kano State. If you can hear me now, Alhaji Dalatu, with what we saw on the ground in some of the states, because it's not only in Kano that this problem came up, it happened in some other states. In fact, Lagos, Osun State, there are people who are aggrieved about the process. But just as we try to get the connection to you so you can respond to some of these issues, is also the agreement whether or not the governor, as the leader of the party, has the power and the prerogative to determine how these congresses will hold, on how it will be administered. But I want to get your view. You are also a leader of the party in Kano State. But give us a sense of how all this panned out. And these elections supposed to hold at every World Congress? Or are you saying that it only happened at one location?
No, we did all our congresses. We have relevant authorities to witness what we did. And it was actually the state governance executive that went to only some of the local governments within the metro and called all their so-called chairmen to come and give them a list of all the wards selected people. So they didn't make any election. They just brought list and brought it to local government within the Kano metro. And then they brought it...
Dalatu, quickly, if I may get your view, because the arrangement generally was to agree on consensus. So is it that you did not trust the judgment of the governor? Because your grievance is that the governor did the way he wanted. Isn't the governor the leader of your party in the state? Didn't you have a stakeholders meeting where you agreed on consensus?
Party. No, we didn't agree on consensus. And even the party, the national executive said there should be Congress. And that's what we relied on from the national. Like I told you, the governor collect called about 100 people and decided they are the caucuses and they have agreed. And he said, is there anybody who doesn't agree? And nobody said no. He raised his two hands and said, I'm the first to agree with consensus. And he was looking at everybody's eyes. And they all said, yes, okay, consensus, but for 100 people. What about the other hundreds of thousands of people out there?
Did your group buy forms? Did you purchase forms, Alhaji Dalatu?
Yes, we did.
And you submitted the forms?
The government bought 13. Of course. We went to the party headquarters. They locked their offices. We went to the Abdullah Abbas private office where they sat down and did whatever they want to do. There was nobody. But the people that were sent from Abuja, they saw us and we stopped them. We told them. They said, well, they are afraid. There are too many people here. Come and meet us at the government house. We said we cannot go to the government house. They drove to the government house, and then all of a sudden there was tear gas on us. The police came and stopped us and threw tear gas and dispersed all of us there. That's how they work here.
In conclusion, because, I mean, this is an internal party affairs, you need to have a way to resolve this matter. There is going to be an appeal process in this World Congress before you move to the next one. What is your next line of action since you're not happy with what happened on Saturday?
Well, we are glad the National Party saw us and is listening to us. And we are open. We are ready to go to the appeal and make a case. But everywhere is negotiation. We are relevant. We have to be relevant because we have the numbers. And it is very important for the National to see us as a relevant stock block of this party in Kano because we make the votes.
Alhaji Shehu Dalatu, chairman of the Buhari support group in Kano State, thank you so much for your time tonight, and I wish you the very best, yourself and your numerous members of your group in Kano State. Thank you so much indeed.
I appreciate the show. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, that's how we end the show tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Shio Kimbale. Bye for now.